let's start with this month's Coalesce transformation talks. Today's topic will be column propagation. Maybe you don't know yet what that is. I'm going to talk about that in our session today. Before that, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Tim Kirschke. I'm a senior consultant at Scale3, and in my everyday work, I typically implement data vaults. And yeah, I don't do that by hand. I typically use data warehouse automation tools like Coalesce, which I'm going to use today as well. So what are we going to talk about today? Yeah, I would say it's a common problem that you typically don't want to deal with, but you have to at some point because tables change, whether you like it or not. Your source data might change over time. And yeah, you just have to deal with it. Even if you ignore it, at some point it will definitely cause some problems. Why would table structures change? Maybe you have a change in the source system. Your source system has an update. Your CRM system has some new columns for a client. Then you would have, for example, a couple of new columns inside your source data. Maybe your data ingestion process changes over time. Your ETL pipelines are now able to absorb additional data that wasn't processed before. So that would now be available, and therefore you should be able to deal with it. Or worst case, you made some development mistakes in the past, and yeah, maybe you forgot some columns, and now yeah, those columns become important, and you have to deal with changing the table structure. What could actually happen with your data? Yeah, so I already said it, you might have some new attributes coming from the source. You might have attributes going missing over time because maybe some attributes are now deprecated in the source system and they now kick it out, right? You do not longer get information about this specific column, and therefore, yeah, the column basically disappears. Or another realistic example would be that an existing column changes the data type over time. Think about maybe you have an integer column currently showing 0 and 1s, and now the source system changes to instead have Boolean values with true or false. All those changes are actually happening. So data that I work with daily, that typically changes as well over time, right? So I would say in most cases, you never have a specific source table that doesn't change at all over time. That would be very unrealistic, I would say. Except maybe the source system is controlled by yourself and you have like an Excel file that you see as a source table here. Then if you don't change that Excel file, of course, it wouldn't change at all. But yeah, as a conclusion, this is stuff that happens in your everyday work when dealing with data, and therefore your data warehouse or your data platform that sits on top of the source data should, in the best case, be able to deal with that. And if you use a tool for data warehouse automation, best case, your tool helps you when you have to deal with such changes. What could happen if data changes or if the table structures change? In the best case, you just have unused and unabsorbed data laying around in your staging area, your data lake, whatever. That would be the case, for example, if you have new columns being added to the source system. If you don't adjust your downstream process, then of course this data would just lay around unused. It wouldn't be that bad, right? So your pipelines and your loading processes still work. You just don't absorb the data, and maybe you lose data if you have like a transient stage and you don't absorb the data, then the data would get lost, right? But it's still, I would say, the best case that could happen. Worst case, attributes get removed and your pipelines, your SQL scripts, they call the columns that are now removed. Therefore, they would fail now. And yeah, if one loading mechanism fails, typically your parts of your whole pipeline fail. Yeah, this could have a big impact in your data environment and your data warehouse overall, right? So yeah, I would say in both cases, you should definitely not put it on the long bench and yeah, react and do something about it. And this is the Coalesce transformation talk, right? So we're going to have a look now at how you would do something about this in Coalesce. And in Coalesce, this is called the column propagation. And column propagation means that basically if we use the column level lineage. So this is a screenshot of Coalesce. I'm going to dive into Coalesce in a second. But Coalesce has, as you might be aware, they have very extended column level lineage features included. So this is an example here. We have customer as a source table. Then we have a data void stage on top. This data void stage adds some hash keys, hash diff. And then on top of this, you have, for example, a customer satellite. You have a link, and what's not shown here is a hub. And if we are in this specific view inside Coalesce, if we have a look at the column level lineage, then we would be able now, oh, that was too far, to click on specific columns and to propagate the addition or deletion downstream. So let's say this column here that I've selected, the name column, is now new, then I could actually click on the addition, and I could be, I'm guided now by Coalesce to modify all downstream objects to actually add this specific column. And then if this process is done, I would basically create a new commit inside Coalesce, and this commit would then reflect my latest changes. Same works for column deletion. Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that's, I would say, easier to understand if you see it actually in action. So let me quit the slides for now and jump into my Coalesce environment. This is it. Let me quickly zoom in a bit. What do we have here? We have basically a sample project. It leverages the TPCH dataset available on Snowflake. And I have created a couple of data void components here. So you see here 4 data void stages, one of them the one that we already saw. And you see a couple of data void basic objects, like we have hubs, links, satellites here. For example, let's stay maybe in the customer world. We have a hub customer, a link customer, a satellite version 0 for customer data. On top of that, a satellite version 1. And then we even have some business world objects here. For example, a point in time table for customer data and one for orders. And we also have, most importantly for now, a fact table for customers, orders. I call it fact customer orders. If you have a look here, what do we see? We can actually fetch some data here. We do see a customer key, a market segment, and based on that, a sum of all the orders, the price of all the orders. So like a grain shift here, right? This is a mock fact table. If the data preview would actually work, we would be able to see some data here. And what we would notice is that the C cust key is very technical. Okay, it doesn't exist yet. So maybe I'm just going to create it. And then I should be able to see some data, hopefully. So is it table? Yeah. So let me run it again, and then we should be able to see some data. Hopefully. I mean, it's a hands-on session. If stuff fails at some point, it's typically during the hands-on sessions, no matter how often you prepared it. But let's see. No error yet, which is typically a good sign. Yeah, okay, so this is our fact table. And if you now have, for example, some business users that use your fact table and they're like, I have the C cust key here, which is just a number. You can see it by the data type. I wanted to show it, but I think it's not available right now. And the numbers are not that meaningful for business users. Now we see it. Great. Took some time, but this is our fact table, right? So you have the business key, the cust key, a market segment, and a total order volume, some technical columns. And now your business user says, I would like to have the customer name instead, or maybe as additional information here to my customer key. So please add a column here. I know that this data is there, so the name should be available in the source system. Please add it to my fact table. How would I do that? I mean, I would now check if this C name is actually included. So where's my fact getting stuff from? Let's have a look. If we check the code here, we can see actually that The C-cast key is pulled from the hub customer, and the market segment is actually pulled from the satellite for customer. So I would now check out my customer satellite, and I can see indeed that there is no name yet, which might be a problem because how should I pull it into my fact then? Let's jump into my source data for customer. And here I can see indeed a name is here, and I might have forgotten to include it in my satellite. So now I have such a case, right? So I mentioned 3 different scenarios. One of them was development mistakes. This would be one for that. So when I created the satellite, I actually forgot to include my customer name. How can we fix this? Let me click here inside my customer source data on the CNAME column, have a look at the column lineage. And what do I actually see? I can see that this is in general the view that you already saw in the screenshot. And it's now highlighting the column level lineage for my CNAME column. So you can see the next layer is the data vault stage, and there the CNAME is still in. And you can also see that it's actually used for my hash diff calculation, which is good. So I didn't completely fail. I actually included my name column in the hash diff generation, but you can see after this layer, the CNAME is not used anymore. I would expect it here in the satellite version 1 and the satellite version 0 and 1. And that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to, for now, switch to the lineage of the data vault stage, because here we still have the customer name. And now I'm going to click on my CNAME column, 3 dots, and then propagate addition, because this column should be added to my downstream objects. Now you see I have some new checkboxes here in my entities, and I can basically use them to tell Coalesce where to add my column, which makes it pretty easy, right? So I can just check here, check in the satellite v1, and also in my fact customer orders. Those are the 3 places where I want my name to be added. I can now click on preview to see how that would look like. And yeah, I can see the name is added to the satellite v0 and v1 just at the end, which is fine for me. And for the fact table as well, the column is added. It's in the end right now. I can't change that for now, but I'm fine with it. I can still modify it later. So yeah, I like what I see. I now click on apply. Some warning. I'm going to confirm my column propagation. I mean, this is still a quite simple example, right? Think about a big data vault project where you actually have a couple of layers of business vault and then some information marks downstream. Then this could really help to make it more streamlined and to actually see where the column is used or is not used, especially if you think about deletion, right? This typically takes a couple of seconds. And a big important thing here is they recommend you to make a git commit before proceeding. I actually did that, so no worries, but you should do it this way. Now you can see it took some time, but finally the column addition was successful. And if I already see now, oh, it did try to recreate my customer satellite, but it failed. I can live with that. But now you can see that my CNAME is actually included. And if I again view the lineage for this specific column, I can see that it actually is loaded into my satellite v0, v1, and fact table. So let's jump to this specific satellite. Let's do that via browser. I can see that this has recently been created. If we look back here, we can see a green arrow. The satellite v1 actually failed. To be honest, I don't really know why. Maybe we just try it again. Maybe we have a look what's happened here. Invalid identifier, CNAME. Okay, well, this is a weird error, typically not happening. Let's ignore it for now. I mean, it did recreate the satellite v0, right? So I would expect the column to actually be there. This looks good. Maybe now the satellite version 1 works as well. Yes, that looks great. And if I now go back to my original fact table, I see the CNAME column is here as well. I'm going to move it around to put it actually as the first column. I think it's more, yeah, talkable than the C cast key. And now I'm going to recreate my fact table, which was successful. I'm going to run my fact table. Ah, yeah. Okay. Of course, I have to modify my SQL statement here. I do have to group by the additional column that I have, which would be the set v1 customer dot cname. And if I adjust this like I did, I should be able, hopefully, to successfully execute my fact table. Great. And now I actually have the name of my customers here included as well, matching my business requirements, right? I could do the same now if I want to delete columns. And yeah, you saw the example of the hash diff. Coalesce actually knows which transformations use which column, and therefore it's easy, very easy for me to yeah, modify and remove or add columns that are added in the source system or disappear in the source system. The final step would always be to create a new commit, right? That's what I'm doing. Now I can see the changes in the nodes. So actually my fact table is changed. My satellites are changed, and I'm just going to write in a nice commit message. C name added to downstream models, commit and push. And now I successfully dealt with my previous development mistakes, and they are now gone forever. Of course, I need to deploy. I'm not going to do that today. We're going to have a separate session about deployment. So we covered column propagation here. This is it for today. If you have any problems with your Coalesce instance, if you deal with such changes, just contact us if you have questions. If you have any other Coalesce questions, you can also ask them here and submit your questions behind the QR code. And then we would be able, for example, to answer them in our next session. These sessions appear every third Thursday of the month at 3 p.m., like this slot here in 4 weeks again. Yeah, I would love to see you there again. And yeah, thanks for joining and have a nice day. Goodbye.